So I just got off work a little bit ago and didn't have any intention on making any video or anything tonight, but I had something that I was thinking about, and I would not call this video advice to people, but I think a better way of calling this would be things to think about is a better thing to say. So this is just going to be some things to think about. Um, I've mentioned this a lot, and I always keep going back to it in one way or another. Of many things I like to go back to and think about and reanalyze, which is humans and people. Um, they're just not worth it anymore. It, really, people are getting more and more. The only way I could say it is evil and demonic and corrupted more and more by the day. This is beyond stupidity. This is bordering on the territory of demonic evil. People are they're becoming more evil. I personally believe that we exist in a fallen state, and as a result of that, we all have some kind of ability to be really cruel. Um, but what we're seeing now, and this has nothing really to do with current events, it's just observations that have been made over time, but nothing particularly with current events. It has nothing to do with that. So this is about current events, which I will get into in a second, but what I'm just speaking about now, it's nothing really to do with that. It's just that in my observation, I've studied people and like out in public and people I surround myself with when I go out and I watch the news, and also being in relationships with people before and seeing how they act and how they treat one another. It's very um, it's very evil stuff. Um, you see, in my mind, I think that there's people that are just stupid, but then it crosses a line where people start exhibiting behavior that is not just stupid, but it's quite evil. And I guess you have to learn how to trust your instinct when you sometimes you go up to somebody and you get this very heavy vibe of them, and that's an instinct telling you that there's something wrong. You don't really get that vibe among stupid people necessarily, but people that are uh, people that don't have your best intentions beyond, you know, pulling a fast one on you. You get what I mean. You can tell people. You can tell when a person has some serious things going on, and they don't have your best interest. But aside from that, I want to get back to the point. As I, and I guess we'll tie this a little bit into current events. As we've seen with things that have happened over the last few months, um, we always have to constantly kind of keep reanalyzing the situation of how do we deal with the fact that we are just falling into a really bad place, um, as a world. It's just falling further into a really pit of no despair. Pretty much hopelessness is really what it is. We always have to keep, at least for me, I have to keep analyzing it and trying to see different angles to it, and study it. It's an ongoing thing. People are just really not worth it anymore. They're just too corrupted, and they're just becoming little demons. They're just becoming demonic. If you got a family, um, I would invest my time with that and pretty much screw everybody else. Now, your family, and I even know this for myself, I can relate to this personally. Me and my family members don't see eye to eye with a lot of things. I live my life completely different, and I have a way of viewing things, as I have shown through my videos over the years and things I've talked about. My family doesn't see things the same way I do. Um, I'm the black sheep of the family, I guess, if you want to say that. I just see things differently than they do, and I understand things about things that they don't necessarily understand. And I just have a different way of viewing things because I've trained myself to have the ability to see into things and view things in a different way than they do. So we don't see eye to eye, but they are family members, and they do help me out and have helped me out in times that I've needed it. Also, if you have friends that you can count on and that are gonna be there for you, um, whether it's to talk about something or maybe if you need help, I would invest my time. You know, if we really want to have a serious look at things, I would invest my time with those two things and pretty much screw everybody else because they've proven themselves time and time again to not give a shit about anybody else uh, but themselves. And part of that, I guess if you want to play the devil's advocate, I don't know if it's a survival instinct, but I don't think so because I just don't see it that way. Especially with these days, it's gone way beyond that. I keep saying it's demonic, it's evil. People are just becoming really, really bad. They're turning. And you know what? If you don't have a family, then invest your time with your friends. If you don't have friends, then invest your time with your family. And if you have neither, then invest your time into yourself, which you should be doing anyway. Everybody should, regardless of their relationship situation with their family or their friends. Another thing to think about is, you know, you need to take time and sit down with yourself or go for a walk with no distractions, no music, no cell phone, no internet, no laptop, no TV, no nothing. And go take a walk and ask yourself some really hard questions. Some things that you might not want to think about or have put away for a while. And things that maybe have left you emotionally scarred or psychologically scarred, whether that's something that an ex did to you or a family member or friends that either screwed you over or did something bad to you. You need to sit down or go for a walk and think about those things and come to peace with them and let them go. However you need to do that, or however that needs to happen, you need to let it go. And the reason why is because we have the ability to still do that now. We have the time in a way to, you know, we have the luxury to be able to have time to think about things other than survival and the most the broadest definition of the word. In other words, if things got really, really bad and we ended up in some kind of civil war, for example, as a result of current events that escalate and be out of control, and or the combination of that with this crap going on with this pandemic, and that leads to complete lockdown, and they already have this tracing program that's in effect now where, you know, the shit's already on your phone. Just go look it up on your phone and look up and see what's on there because they already have it on there. So don't update your phone if you haven't in the last 3 months. I wouldn't do it. Because now that we have this time to think about, there's a little calm, not necessarily, but in a way we have the luxury to sit down and think about these things because you need to do this work. You know, what are you getting at, Element? What's the point? The point is that you need to figure out the things that bother you and let them go so that you can free your mind up to start preparing for the possibility that we could just fucking implode and things could just spiral out of control really in a really bad way. um, as a result of current events and the combination of all those things and people's mindset. Because if something like that did happen and things just took a really turn for the worst, you're not going to have the ability to work on yourself. You don't need all these issues in your life and all these mental things that are bothering you when you have a situation, a really bad situation that will affect possibly your livelihood and your future for the rest of your life, and or your well-being and your physical safety. You don't need those issues. You need to have a clear mind, and you need to let bad events in your life, you need to sit down and work through them. And I bring this up as just things to think about, because these are things I just think about. And I guess it is in light of current events. I pay as much attention to detail as I can about where they are taking things, and it's just nothing good that can come out of it. I hate to tell you. So I think about these things and I try to figure out what I'm going to do, and I have to work on myself. I have to figure out things that bother me, and I have to figure out a way to let them go, so that I can free up time to focus on ultimately surviving the next portion of our lives that is not going to look too pretty. And that's possible. That's an understatement. It's going to look beyond not too pretty. It's going to be hell on earth. So we have to have a clear mind here. We have to really organize our thoughts, and we got to kind of let things go and be as mature about this as we can, and not dwell on things that happened to us in the past and things that we couldn't control, or however you want to come to that conclusion, whatever helps you move on from it. These are things you need to think about. And be honest with yourself about a lot of things. It's the best I can tell you to do. It's a tough situation we're finding ourselves in here. I mean, it's difficult. It's a hopelessness is what it is, because we're just entering in this tunnel, and there's not going to be any light on the other end for a good long time. And as we go through that tunnel, it's going to be just the worst fucking things you could imagine that you're going to have to deal with, and not everybody's going to make it out of the tunnel alive. I mean, that's a matter of fact. A lot of people are going to lose their minds in the process. It's just the situation we're in, and you know what? None of us wanted to be in this situation. None of us wanted to see all this happen. But for most people, what they do is I'm sure they've all thought about these things. The world's going to a really bad place. Things are going to get worse. People have all thought about that possibly at some point. But then they just kind of get back to their lives, and they keep doing what they're doing. And in a way, you kind of have to maintain your sanity. Maybe it's just that I'm more extreme than others. I live in it all the time, and I do have a break. I do give myself the time to get away from all these thoughts. But it still sticks with me, because I have to have the insight. People will betray you in life, even possibly your family and maybe close friends, which has happened to me. But use your better judgment and use your common sense. If you know the person, pay attention to their actions. Actions always speak louder than words. If you're not sure about somebody and who they are, pay attention to their actions, because that will give you more insight than anything they will ever say. Because People just don't have self-control. They act on their actions, and that shows you who their really real personality is based on how they act. Pay attention to people's actions instead of what they say if you're unsure about them. These are things to think about because we're going in, things are just not good. We're in a rough time right now, and it's just going to get worse. I hate to say it. I don't like to be one of these guys all the time. You might think I do, but I'm not. I don't like to say that things are getting bad all the time. But I would be lying to you if I said things are getting any better. Because we all know that's bullshit. Every now and then we have good things happen to us in life, but as a general whole, good things might happen individually, but we're still in a shitty world that goes by this direction that we have no control over. In the martial arts, they teach you how to avoid a punch, not take it on. To go with the flow, and that's kind of what you have to do. You have to kind of just go with the flow. And so all this kind of things to think about and this mental preparation is training us to go with the punch of what's coming square in our face instead of trying to take it head on, which a lot of people have their own opinions about. People say we should stand up and go out there and kick ass, but nobody's prepared enough for that, and there's just so much more to it than that. A lot of things to think about, and not enough time to think about it, really. And when you think about it, there's not a lot of time to sit down and just ponder these things, because we are running out of time in a lot of respects. And your fellow human beings aren't going to do nothing about it. And really, I guess, again, to play devil's advocate, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say, well, there's nothing you can do about it. But the thing about us is that we're trying to figure out how to survive this. The general public could give a shit either way. They don't care. They know things are bad, but they don't care, and they don't try to better themselves, which shows for their behavior, which is why I say people are just not worth your time. Because look at their actions, You got to cut people out of, you have to cut people like that out of your life. It's just going to end up badly. Those are the kind of people that are going to rat you out because you didn't take a fucking vaccine or some shit. And not even to mention that, but why would you want to spend your time with somebody like that anyway? It's mental deadness. You don't get any stimulation out of that. So, it's late night things to think about. A lot of things to think about. How do we survive this? How far are we willing to go personally? I have the goal in my mind about how far I want to take things just to maintain my sanity and to prepare myself the best I can. Means that I'm going to have to completely change my lifestyle in a very dramatic way. And that doesn't mean necessarily, going and living in the hills in a cabin or, throwing away everything except my bed and living this minimalistic life, which I'm a minimalist anyway. I don't carry a lot of crap. I don't mean it that way. I mean, it's how I conduct myself. I have to start looking at things as they are, and I have to stick with it, because that's the thing. If you're going to do this thing, you have to stick with the decisions that you make. If you see the things that are happening around you, and you see how people are, and realizing that they're not going to be there for you, and they don't give a shit about you, and women don't give a shit about you, the government doesn't give a shit about you, nobody cares about you, and you're on your own. You have to, once you realize that, you have to make a choice, make a decision, and you have to stick with it. Because if you don't stick with it and you don't make that commitment, then you're just going to go back to whatever default it was that you were living before you made that change, and then you're just going to go back to it once things get really hard. because it's more comfortable for you to live a life of, you know, living in a better situation, or maybe trying to uphold a fake thing that you once wanted to imagine that you can still have, but you can't, so you have to sit down and stick with what decisions you decide to make, and you've got to stick with it through the end, to the end, like I said, because if you don't, then when things get really hard, you're gonna falter, and all that work that you did was for nothing. So that's what I mean. It's a complete change of life. So for me, I guess I have come to the realization of a few things. Number one, I will never get married. I will never have children. I will never be in a situation where I can rely on a relationship with a woman under any circumstance, because of the actions that have been shown, that I have experienced personally, that I have experienced with others and my friends and people that I know, all that have gone through this. The actions that they exhibit are a detriment to my well-being, mentally, psychologically, and physically in some cases. If we lived in a different world, it would be different. I would not be thinking that way, but this is what we've got. This is our situation, and we have to be honest with ourselves. We can't engage ourselves with it. It's not worth our time, and we always end up getting hurt by it. And there's a lot of reasons why that is, as far as male and female relationship dynamics has been talked about ad nauseum, but we all know, in our own way of looking at it, we know it's just a situation that we cannot affect. The only thing that you can control in life is yourself. I heard that from a person. The only thing that you can control is yourself and your actions. It's going to be very hard for a lot of people, because they don't have, they just don't have the mental guts to do it, to just live a completely different, just to be honest with yourself. They don't have the guts to do it. They don't have the guts to be honest with themselves. They want to live in a fantasy land, and that's why things always just keep getting worse, partially, at least if we're partly to blame. That's a big reason why, because people just go back to it, and they don't commit to anything anymore. They don't sit down and try to fix it. At least the things that they actually can fix, which is themselves. Because if you fix yourself, then and you can control how you react to people, how you deal with people, then that will affect how others deal with themselves. And then if you have enough people do that, then people get along and things get better. But that requires a lot of work and a lot of honesty to do that, and people are just not wanting to do it. They'd rather go to the bars and get drunk and fuck around and not be loyal and run away and be flaky and not be honest and confront people. They'd rather do that, so don't expect much out of people, that's for sure. So you're on your own, basically. So you're on your own, and you're not going to get to have any of those things. And on top of that, we're dealing with a situation where we could be in a civil war, and we could be completely locked down in a 1984 totalitarian system, which we already partially live in.
To an extent, it's just a matter of how far they push the lever, which they're pushing it further and further down. Um, these are all things that we're contending with, and it's very difficult, it's very stressful, but the fact that you're doing the mental preparation now is going to give you the leg up. So, like I said, some things to think about. What are you going to do with all this stuff that's going on? How are you going to cope? How are you going to survive? How are you going to keep your sanity? Um, and try not to let past things that have happened to you affect you to the point where you can't be a functional person anymore. We all have been through heartbreaks, and we have all had people betray us in various different forms. But we've got to find a way to get over it, because what we're facing coming up here is going to require our full attention and the best mental aptitude that we can have. We got to think clearly now. And if people come in our lives that were meant to be there, then they will be there. And if they're not, they won't. Um, that's what I believe. I think the people that are going to be in your life that need to be there will be there, and the people that won't will not. I think that's the best way I can see it. The best way I can view it. That's the best way I can put it across to you. So, anyways, before I let this go on too far and I start stepping over things I've already talked about, I guess just some things to think about. It's why people listen to these kind of things, is because they know that they're alone in this thing, just like I am, just like we all are, trying to figure out what to do about this, how to survive. How do we survive, and how do we survive and not lose our minds in the process? Which, in a perfect world, we would want everything to be perfect, but we know that that's not the case. We know that what's going to happen is we're going to do our best to survive, and we're going to suffer psychologically really bad for it. And it will affect us, and it will leave scars on us. So, let's not kid ourselves here. We can't have it all. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't expect to survive and then come on it unscathed in the other end of things. This is not the case. So maybe I should correct what I just said. Don't expect to have your cake and eat it too. You can either survive, but don't expect you to be mentally, you know, perfect in the end. This stuff affects everybody. Some people, it affects them more or less than others. And it's just how you end up coping with that and how you deal with that in the healthiest way that you can is going to be the best possible situation for you for the long term. Um, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. I just kind of wanted to ramble a bit here. Like I said, it's things I think about at night. Things I think about at night. I don't know. I've had it from friends of mine that, they ask if I'm going to keep the channel going and stuff. I just make videos if I feel like I need to say something. Um, Another thing I think about is, what am I going to do with my family? How do I deal with them when our difference of opinions comes down to life or death, or getting yourself tied into a system that you'll never get out of, or something that's really bad for you that will lead to you being a slave for the rest of your life? How do you deal with that? For me, I separate myself from my family to an extent. I live my own life, and I keep my opinions to myself. And when they start talking about stuff like that, I just don't say anything because it's not worth it, and they just don't understand the way I see things, or maybe the way you guys see things too. It's not worth getting into an argument over over it. It's just not worth it. It's too much energy, and you're not going to get anywhere doing that. They've already made up their minds, and so let them make up their minds, and that's it. You know, we're humans. We all want to have deep connections, and as men, we wanted to have deep connections with women, and we wanted them to love us and care for us and all this kind of stuff. And you know, there's good ones out there. I think that there is, but good luck fucking finding them. And everybody's got faults. So as far as that being worth the investment in your time, especially now, that probably not. Not a good idea. Too much hell you gotta go through. And we all know heartbreak sucks, so we want to put ourselves through that all over again, you know. But that's, you know, that's each person's own decision to think about those things as far as what kind of relationships you want to have and how far you want to take them, and knowing what you know, that's up to you. You know, most of you guys are probably grown-ups. You can make your own decisions, and you don't need me to tell you what you shouldn't and shouldn't do. You know, if you want to go do something, then go do it. But just think about what you're going to do before you do it. What else? I'm running out of things to say here, and it's getting late, and I'm probably gonna have to go to bed soon. So I'm trying to figure out if there's any other crucial stuff I should say. Yeah, heavy stuff. I mean, it's not easy to think about these things. It's not easy to have to come to these thoughts and things. But it's crucial to our survival, even more so now. If you got any common sense left, you'd realize that we're not in a good place and things aren't getting any better. And if you've done any research and looking into what the plans are for the end result of us, it's going to come down to not so good. It's going to either come down to us being locked into like a THX 1138 1984 on steroids dystopian society, or us dead. Those are pretty much the two things left here, and we lose our souls. And we wind up in a fucking hell world. So the outcomes are not too good in our favor. If you do any research looking into what these fucking people have plans for us, it ain't very good. So if you got a job, you know, work and make your money and save your money and buy things that you're going to need. Invest your money wisely. Don't spend it on crap you don't need or that isn't worth it to you. Put your money into things that are worth it, that are going to pay off in the long term for your survivability and what decisions you've decided to make with that decision you made. What kind of life you're going to live and how you're going to invest that money into that new life that you're going to live as a result of what you now know. For me, I'm going to do my best to just disappear. Lay as low as I possibly can. I don't talk about this stuff with family. I don't talk about this stuff with people at work. Those are two different kind of lives. And I prefer to keep it that way because things get messy when you start talking about, you know, what the world has in plan. You start bringing occultic knowledge into the forefront of people's minds, and you start bringing all this stuff up into the conversation. It gets messy, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why you don't do it. So that stuff is kind of something that you're just going to have to live with yourself if you know about it or if you don't. You know, there's just a lot of things that sometimes you know a lot of things and you just can't share with people other than the people that already know. It's just how it is. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. Appreciate anybody that stuck through it and listened. just things to think about. Stuff I think about all the time. Trying to keep focused and stick with my plan has been challenging because I have desires and things that I would like, but I have to be honest with myself and ask, what's the easiest way for me to get out of this situation without getting affected by it? How do I get the least affected by what is going on and how people are, and get away from this thing with the least amount of damage done to me as a person. And to me, that just means disappearing and laying low under the radar, and doing the things that I do to keep myself from not going crazy as a result of it. My little habits and routines are the things that keep me centered. When you live the kind of life of laying low, people think it's a boring life, but to me, I don't think so. It's a decision I've made, and I'm that way anyway. But anyways, enough of that. I appreciate everybody for listening, and maybe if you guys have any input on what I said or whatever, always leave it in the comments. More than welcome to discuss it amongst yourselves, and maybe this could be a topic for a podcast. Things to think about. If you guys think so, and you know who you are, let me know. It might be a good topic for a discussion, and I can elaborate this and expand this amongst other people more than just myself. So I'm tired. I've got to go to bed and go do this work thing all over again tomorrow and make money so that I can afford to do things that I need to do for myself. To prepare myself for whatever the hell might be coming our way, which is a tough thing to do, but at least I'm trying. But anyways, hope everybody has a good afternoon, a good night whenever you're listening to this, and I'll speak to you when I speak to you.